Okay, hello and welcome back to Land Rover Toolbox videos. We're going to do a little bit of painting and painting understanding with the help of Rite Paints. Right, so what I have here is a panel painting stand. Now you can hang anything from a bonnet off it or wings. In this case, this is a Land Rover Discovery front wing. And you can see that it has certain hooks and notches in it so we can fit different panels. It's very adjustable and adaptable for stuff when you're painting. Now, foot pedal down here pulls a rod down, and this unlocks it so we can turn this 180 degrees, so we can have from vertical to horizontal if we wish. A pretty good piece of kit. Now basically we did buy this off eBay. What we have here now is a Defender wing. This helps you prepare, and then when painting we can get all the way around it with a minimal fuss. Okay, so Arite Paints, they supply paints for automotive and industry. They also do welding supplies. However, they do a lot of different military paints and the primers to go with it. And we're going to cover the Etch primer. Aluminium basically needs to be etch primed before you can go ahead and paint any more. As you can see here, this is a very well evenly distributed paint which has been sprayed on here, and this would have eaten into the aluminium to give it a good chemical fix before putting a top coat on it. Right, so you know, as we love our checker plate, this is an example that's just been etch primed and then painted satin black. Edge priming also is necessary if you've been rubbing panels down that are aluminium. And what I have here now, just as an example, I have a board which has loads of different paints, coverings. This is just a test board when I'm getting a spray gun ready. And what I want to show you here is the etch primer. You can't scrape it off. Whereas if I keep scraping, I will find something like just normal paint coating underneath. Now that just chips straight off the aluminium. Whereas the etch primer itself, you can see I'm scratching it and it's not lifting, it's just scratching. So that's what it does. It's a primer that fixes itself to the metal properly. Now something else I want to show you here. This is a chemical reaction with the solvents. Underneath is a normal paint, and you can see it by the shiny bits, it hasn't stuck at all. Basically the solvents have reacted to the paint underneath it and is just blistered or fried up, as some people say. You'll find this with some incompatible paints. Etch primer, it does what it says. It actually etches into the metal, and the chemical used is phosphoric acid. And this will help the paint stick so you can then fix a top coat. Right, so the Pro XL Acid Etch, or the Pro Etch, is actually a very good product. You have yourself on this one is an adjustable nozzle, which will be something like what will come out of a HVLP spray gun. And you can see the nozzle here, and it has an adjuster at the back. When it's fully open, you can see that it gives you a wide spray pattern, so this is pretty good and it will do an even coat very quickly. You also get the more traditional spray nozzle in the cap as an extra. On the side of the tin, if we have a look, you'll see that it has small pictures on it, okay, and that gives you the information for the paint. Overpaintable in 15 to 20 minutes, and it's also sandable. It is also a volatile paint product, so take care to read the warnings as well. Okay, so this is a very go-to site, Arite, and if we have a look along the top, we have paints, welding and PPE. We're interested in paints, automotive and industrial. They also have specialist paints. Now, basically, we have primers up the top here is where we found our primer. We also have specialist paints, rust control, which is interesting for some people, and also military and camouflage paints. We'll get into those presently, but what we need to do is go to automotive, click onto primers, and then go down and find our etch primer. Now this will be the expand button, and what we're looking at, this is the product. From this point you can read the details of it or add to cart and buy. Right, so what we have here is a brand new Defender wing. This is an aftermarket one from Rite Paint. Okay, the primer surfacing that's been put on this has already been etch primed, but it's actually very rough. So for the external part, I'm going to flatten this off with wet and dry. It is very rough. Okay, so I've got 600 grit, or P600, you can see that. And basically I'm just going to flatten it off so it's got a smoother surface for me to paint onto. Basically, wet and dry is probably the best way of flattening off primer, and I'd advise you do it when you lay primer onto a panel if you want a very smooth finish. Right, so I've wet and dried it and I'm just washing the dust off. You can see the bare metal parts here, and this needs to be reapplied with etch primer to give it a good fixing. Right, so there's a fair bit that needs doing. You can see the panel isn't actually brilliant at all. It's got a dent in it. I'd advise that when you are handling panels before painting, wear gloves, otherwise you will leave oil in the primer. You can see that. The same applies to things like checker plate. Now the checker plate I've etch primed and painted, and we have a sample here. Now this really needs a key, and this is a Scotch-Brite. Scotch-Brite will key up the surface so you've got scratches in it for extra adhesion. So basically what you're doing is getting in all the bumps and grooves and leaving little scratches everywhere. This helps the etch primer to bite in even better. I'd advise always to use a degreasant to get grease off and to remove the last remaining amounts of dirt that are left on the panel just before you go ahead and prime it. Now I'm actually using brake cleaner here, but you can get proprietary panel wipes and degreasants. This is a vital stage when you do it, so you get the best adhesion possible. Okay, so Arite, what we've chosen here is military camo paint, semi-gloss, which is a satin NATO green. No surprise there. We've also got the primer for it. We've got the etch primers as well, and also we have a mask which you need for painting. Now A1P3R is the filter designation. These come sealed because you need to open them just before you paint, and they have a life on them. The code for the filters are on the box, and I advise that you read them very carefully for the right type of paint. Now I am using mine today, which is a P2R, and then the charcoal filter underneath is an A1. Okay, now that is a changeable filter on my mask. Okay, now this I will do a different video to explain what the filters are, but basically you can see the orange paint in here. Now this is a fresh one. This is just a little bit of an extra job I did for my mum. It's just to paint her handcart bright orange again. And the dust that gets in the air, you do not want that in your lungs. Your body does not like it. Right, so basically I don't need to tell you how to paint a panel, do I? But the Pro XL leaves a very good surface finish. Okay, it tends to settle a lot better than some primers, and it's smoother as well. So we've done the whole wing in it. Now with the tread plate, basically I've set this fan setting on full. Okay, so we have a good spray pattern here, like a spray gun. And for painting the tread plate, now we know what tread plate is used for in our Land Rovers, so I don't need to say no more. Just watch how quickly this actually is covering it. Okay, now you do a 50% overlap on each time you do a pass, and basically that's covered straight away. I'd advise doing 2 coats. Always clear your nozzle after you've finished, so you can use the can again unless it's empty. What I did notice about this certain spray can is that I was holding it horizontally and I was still getting a very decent paint delivery, unlike a spray can that I tried earlier, which seemed to sputter after using it for about 30 seconds. So basically what we have here is the tread plate, which has a very decent coating on it and there are no runs whatsoever. So we'll let this dry and then come back to it, see how it's finished itself. Okay, so after half an hour we have a touch dry surface, and unfortunately a little bit of dust has settled in it, and I have a slight bit of a run just here which can be wet and dried out. Checker plate has come out well, there is no missed parts whatsoever, and it's touch dry, so Yeah, it's good etch primer.